I started with the original Osmo Pocket, and then I went to the Pocket 2, and now the Pocket 3. And spoiler alert, this one is by far the best. I use these Osmo cameras in a few different situations, mostly for BTS and for travel. For everything else, I find myself wanting to use my Sony cameras. However, it doesn't get better than just taking this camera out of the box, turning it on, and having it just immediately start up and be ready to go. In my eyes, this is where these cameras really shine. Here are the settings I found most useful to update and understand to get the best results out of this Pocket 3. And I'll also leave links to my Pocket 1 and 2 videos. They're a little bit older, but there is still useful information, even for the Pocket 3. Starting out straight away, it's important to put this camera into Pro mode. This unlocks the ability to actually manually adjust the shutter and ISO, and you can't adjust the aperture because it's a fixed f2 on this camera. After enabling Pro mode and then clicking into exposure allows you to adjust the shutter speed and ISO. However, even in Pro mode, you can't use anything higher than 60 frames per second. If you want to shoot higher than that, and do slow motion, you'll have to go into the dedicated slow mode. I wish Pro allowed you to just have access to the entire camera settings without needing to switch. If you use the same settings and find yourself jumping between different camera modes, saving them as a preset is a quick way to switch between all of your go-to shooting settings. I use this for 4K 24 and 4K 120 for the slow motion. The next setting has to do with the gimbal, and this is a general tip here, but while this camera does have a gimbal, the camera is very small and it's easy to move it to the point where it can't compensate for those horizontal or vertical movements. So it's easy to move this camera around too much and have your footage look like it's floating or wobbling from side to side. This is a problem with all of these three cameras. You really have to be careful to not move the gimbal around too much while you're filming and let the gimbal compensate for what it can. Getting more specific about learning the different follow modes will allow you to choose the proper follow mode for whatever your shoot calls for. Using the wrong follow mode will get you bad results straight away, so take a second to learn how they all work and it will pay off in the long run. Swiping down from the top and pressing the bottom right icon gets you into the gimbal modes. Follow mode allows you to pan and tilt the camera. If you're trying to follow something and you're not using ActiveTrack, I found that this is one of the easiest ways to still have a level horizon but track subjects easily. The next mode is tilt locked, and tilt lock mode allows you to keep your horizon line consistent when you pan the camera left and right. This is great for if you're walking around and you don't want to have your horizon be floating around. If you want to get something in frame, you can pedestal up the camera and you'll just move the whole frame up or down. This is great to keep your camera nice and locked off with a steady horizon. FPV mode allows you to use the pan, tilt, and roll axis to follow your movements. So you can pan, tilt, and roll the camera, and the Osmo will react to whatever you're trying to do. And if you double tap the recenter button, it will be level with the horizon. The last mode we have is FPV perpendicular. This functions the same way as FPV mode, but when the camera is facing forward and you go to recenter the gimbal, it will not recenter on the horizon line. It will recenter wherever this screen is oriented towards. I use tilt lock and FPV perpendicular the most, but honestly, if I'm going to be using this camera and I just put it down, I'll be using ActiveTrack, and let's dive into some ActiveTrack settings to get the best results out of the Pocket 3. ActiveTrack is a great feature of all of these Pocket cameras, but the best version of ActiveTrack is definitely on the Pocket 3. Regular ActiveTrack is pretty good, just double tap a subject and then your camera will follow it around, and clicking the 5D button will cancel that. Things get really interesting when you start to use ActiveTrack modes. The first one is auto, and this will detect if you have a face in your scene and it will auto detect to your face. This is great if you want to put your camera down and then just have your camera auto detect and follow you around. However, if someone else is also in the frame and they're closer to the camera, your camera will jump to the person who's closest. So this is great if you're alone or, people are not around you. But if you're in a crowded area or there's other people around you, this one might be a little bit problematic, and you should maybe just ActiveTrack on the screen so it knows which person to follow. The mode I really like is dynamic framing. This is ActiveTrack, but you can select where to keep the subject in the frame while it's active tracking. So for me, one of my biggest gripes about these other cameras was ActiveTrack will just kind of have a mind of its own. It will track where you want, but it just kind of puts the subject anywhere in the frame that it can. However, with dynamic framing, you can choose where you want the person to be active tracked in the frame. This is pretty awesome, and this is one of my favorite features of ActiveTrack on the Pocket 3. Last one in this menu is SpinShot, and it's technically not an ActiveTrack mode, but this gives you 90 or 180 degrees of rotation for your frame. This can be cool for a music video or something, but I don't see myself using this one very much. A cool feature, but not really one I would use a whole lot. Before we get into number 5, I'd like to tell you about today's video sponsor, Motion Array. Motion Array saves you tons of time with their editing assets, but today I want to focus on their LUT section. Here's some footage that I graded using the Motion Array LUT packs. They have a selection of different LUT packs that you can choose from to help color grade your image. They're broken into different LUT packs with different looks, so once you find a pack you like, you can test out a few different looks until you find the one you're looking for. Some of their LUT packs, like movie looks, give your footage a subtle and filmic look, while there are more stylized packs that push your footage to the limit. Some of my favorite packs are the Bleached pack, Film Stories, and the Cinematic LUTs, but there are a ton of different ones to choose from, so you'll be able to find a look that fits your project. Motion Array also has a wide selection of video templates, motion graphics, footage, music, and sound effects as well. They also have their graphics, photo, and AI features. Motion Array also has an automated tool that can help automatically clear copyright issues, so you can remove the headache of copyright claims. To try out Motion Array, you can sign up for a free account to access a small amount of free assets. Or if you subscribe to a monthly or yearly plan, you can access the entire library for your personal and commercial projects. If you use the link in my description, you'll get $50 off when you subscribe today. Thank you, Motion Array, for sponsoring this video. On to number 5, and for some audio settings. For me, the bundle is definitely worth it. The mic and tripod and the battery extension really are big quality of life improvements when it comes to this camera. If I want to shoot a quick talking head, it doesn't get faster than turning this camera on, turning the mic on, pressing record, and just going. There is a bit of setup to get this all working though. There's 2 big settings to start off. The first one is to record backup audio onto the DJI mic's internal storage. Go into the Pocket 3 settings, wireless mic, then enable audio to video sync. With this selected, whenever you press record on your Pocket 3, your wireless mic will also begin recording to the internal storage. So if you experience any dropouts, you have a safety track on the mic itself. The next big thing is to enable 32-bit float recording on the DJI Mic 2. If any audio is too soft or clips, you'll be glad you turned on 32-bit float recording. This is one of the main reasons I might update all of my DJI Mic 1s to the Mic 2s. Keep in mind that the 32-bit float recording is only on the DJI Mic 2 internal storage. It doesn't get transmitted over to the Pocket 3's audio file. So if you need to repair some audio, use the DJI Mic 2's internally recorded version. A great quality of life feature is that if you are away from your Pocket 3 and you want to trigger recording on your Pocket 3 from your DJI Mic 2, if you press this link button, you'll be able to start recording on the Pocket 3, and you will also be recording internally to your DJI Mic 2 because we turned on the video to audio sync. So this is a pretty cool feature when you pair these 2 features together. Onto a bit of a controversial topic, but choosing the proper color mode is very important on this camera, so let's go over those right now. D-Log M is the log color profile you want to use if you want to push your grade and your footage. It's meant to have the widest dynamic range, and that means you'll have the most latitude in the highlights and the shadows, and you'll have the best colors. But a little warning here, if you don't know what you're doing, don't bother shooting in log because this is easy to screw up. Even if it's 10-bit footage, the footage will look off while you're filming it, but if you want to have the best image and you don't mind color grading your footage after you shoot it, this is the profile you want to be shooting in. HLG is also a wide dynamic range color gamut, but for HLG, you are shooting for HLG enabled TVs or monitors. So unless you have a very specific use case for this in mind, I would honestly stay away from it. Finally, normal. This is a what you see is what you get kind of a look. If it looks overexposed or underexposed, it will be. This is very beginner friendly and it makes sharing your footage a lot faster because you don't have to color grade this in DaVinci Resolve and have like multiple nodes to grade one clip. If you just want to take something off the card and ship it, this is the color mode you want to be using. There are times when I'll use D-Log M, like if the lighting is nice, but for most of the time I will keep it in normal just for the simplicity. On my Sony cameras, I'll be shooting S-Log 3 all day, but this camera is a nice, quick and easy camera. So for me, I mostly shoot in normal with the Pocket 3. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments down below. The next setting is focus modes, and this one can ruin a shot if you don't choose the correct one. First up, single. Single sets autofocus once and does not update until you tap the screen again. Use this one for still subjects.
Here's an example when we want to use autofocus single. If we're doing a reveal from a pillar right here, and we want to focus on the background, if we tap to focus, it'll focus there. We can start rolling, and then when we do our reveal, it won't focus on the pillar and it'll only focus on the background.
Next is continuous, and continuous constantly updates focus. This is best for moving subjects. Last up, product showcase mode, and what better way to illustrate this than showing you a product and then taking it away. It will focus back on my face and then it will focus on the product whenever it's in frame, and then it will focus back on my face. Number 8, use the touchscreen and save the app for remote viewing. In the past with the Pocket 1 and 2, the screens were really small. However, the Pocket 3's screen is big enough that I find myself being able to shoot with the screen as is. I still use the DJI Mimo app mostly for remote viewing when I'm away from the camera and I don't have one of these to start and stop recording with. One of my favorite features for the Pocket 3 is definitely using it as a camera for motion lapses and hyperlapses. This is one of those features that really leans into the unique characteristics of this camera and taking advantage of the gimbal. If you're trying to film a motion lapse with a normal camera, you have to constantly be reframing to keep your subject in the middle of the frame. However, if you want to do that with this camera, you just ActiveTrack it and walk towards it and the camera will do the rest of the work. It's pretty awesome. My best recommendation for both of these modes though is to keep the camera as stable as you can possibly keep it. Keeping your camera on a tripod for motion lapses will have the camera be steady so you don't have any warping throughout the motion lapse. Hyperlapses, also keeping the camera steady and letting the gimbal do its work to track this subject will really allow for the best results of the hyperlapse. I also like to shoot video plus JPEG, so I can assemble the JPEGs as an image sequence later in post-production. I go more into this in my Pocket 2 video, so I'll leave a link to that one at the end of this one. Also, setting your shutter and white balance is really important. It's important for all video, but it's especially important for hyperlapse and motion lapses because they are a pretty big time commitment for a relatively short clip. So if you invest all that time to watch it back and then your white balance is moving in the middle of it, it can kind of ruin it and it takes a long time to set up again. So make sure your white balance is definitely set to manual and whatever Kelvin you want it to be when you're in these two modes. My last tip for the Pocket 3 and all of these cameras is to have proper expectations when you are going to buy one of these or use it. It's not as rugged as an action camera. It can't capture everything like a 360 camera can, but whatever is in the frame will be higher quality than a 360 camera after you zoom around and everything. A mirrorless camera will definitely produce a better image. This camera isn't made to replace this camera, but this is truly a unique camera that has a fast setup time, smooth footage with an integrated gimbal, easy pairing with the microphone, and honestly, one of my favorite parts is just how small it actually is. On to the shortcuts for the Pocket 3. Mastering these will make your life much easier. Starting off with the shutter button, press once to turn it on, press again to start recording, and hold to turn it off. The 5D joystick can do a couple of different things. One that I use the most is double clicking to recenter the gimbal. Pressing and holding the joystick disables the gimbal. Releasing it allows you to move it again. If up and down arrows are on the right of the screen, moving the joystick up or down will zoom in or out. If the plus and minus icons are on the right side of the screen, then you'll be moving the gimbal up or down. Moving left or right will always pan the gimbal left or right. Triple pressing the 5D button flips the gimbal into selfie or straight forward. Rotating the screen will turn the camera off, or pressing continue will move to portrait shooting. Moving the screen to landscape mode will turn the camera on. This is how I turn the camera on most of the time. For the screen, the bottom left selects the shooting mode. Middle left selects the gimbal mode. Top right shows battery info. Middle right toggles between zoom and tilt modes on the 5D joystick. And bottom right flips the gimbal. Swiping from the bottom of the screen allows you to change your camera settings. Swiping from the right allows you to play back clips. From the top opens your settings. And swiping from the left allows you to open your exposure and audio adjustments. I don't think this camera will be for everyone, but if you're looking for a small, compact camera with a gimbal that's easy to use and starts up quickly, this camera really is a total home run. What do you guys think of the Pocket 3? Let me know in the comments down below. And here are some videos for the Pocket 1 and 2 on screen now. They are a little bit older, but they are still relevant to the Pocket 3. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.